thanks for coming, everybody.
So, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
So I was curious, one thing, and it's one thing we're looking for are the fundraising numbers. Can you talk a little bit about how you did, and if you're raising less than Kirk did?
I think we're releasing them today.
Are you less than I assume you're less than the 2.2 million?
We're releasing them tomorrow, and we had our best quarter.
But I assume you're less than Kirk, or else we probably would have released them already.
Is that a question, or is that?
Are you less than Kirk? Did you raise less than Kirk?
We had we had a record quarter. We will release them tomorrow.
So you raised less than him, but still had a record quarter.
We had a record quarter. We'll release them tomorrow. Yes.
I was confused by that. Yes, you did raise more than him, or yes,
No,
no, you did not raise more than him.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
What operating action did the story released by Crane say about $10,000 lien, IRS lien against the Broadway Bank?
I haven't seen it. I've been in the City Club of Chicago, but probably have to ask the bank.
When do you expect the notice of failure? Do you expect it just on the 23rd or the 30th, or is there a chance it will fail?
I don't know. You have to ask the bank that. I know that, as I mentioned, they're doing everything they can. But it's really tough out there.
Can you go back to the fundraising for 1 second? So if you didn't raise less than Kirk, doesn't that indicate that you have problems? I mean, you're the the top of the Democratic ticket in a Democratic state, and you can't outraise the Republican.
Well, I think there's a couple things that are incredibly important. First is making a pledge not to take money from federal lobbyists and corporate PACs. I can tell you, makes things tougher. That's the reality. When you run for Senate, when you run for Congress, and you don't take that money during tough economic times, it makes it more challenging. That being said, we also had a primary, unlike my opponent, where we spent a large portion of that quarter preparing for a primary ballot, preparing for debates, getting ready for a primary. He had the advantage of not having one. That being said, in spite of all that, we had our strongest supporter ever, and we're going to work hard to make sure we have the resources to win this campaign.
So there was no softness in your fundraising due to issues at the bank and the controversy?
We had a primary which took us out from raising money for a long time. We just had our best quarter ever, so no.
Would you have had a better quarter had this controversy not been in play?
That's a hypothetical, which I don't think anyone knows. Again, for us to have that primary and have to make sure we win the primary and still have our record quarter, it's encouraging. We have a lot more.
Are there any circumstances that would lead you to back off of your pledge not to take money from corporate PACs and loans?
No. But
Alexi, you clearly tried to turn a corner here today away from talking about the bank to talking about the economic issues that ought to resonate in Illinois. You think you did it?
that's not true. I mean, we're not trying to stop talking about it. I've been talking about it since November. I had a press conference trying to talk about the challenges that the bank is facing. And I'm going to continue to talk about it. I'll continue to answer any questions that you may have, as tough as they may be personally. I'm here to answer them. The point today is, at some point we'd like to elevate this debate. We'd like to talk about issues, because when I travel the state of Illinois, they're not talking about Broader Bank. They're talking about the challenges they're facing. They're talking about the fact that their brothers and their sisters and their parents have lost their jobs, or their kids are moving in with them. I can't see Greg and stuff. And they're concerned and they're genuinely scared about the future.
All right, let me use your terminology then. Do you think you were successful in elevating the debate?
I can only try, and I can only hope. And again, I think when you talk to people, and we all live in this sort of insider baseball world, when you get out there and you talk to families, they want to hear about issues. They want to know where Congressman Kirk is on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They want to know where Congressman Kirk is on his statement that he wants to repeal health care reform that he's now backing away from. They want to hear where we are on these issues, and he continues to only talk about Broader Bank, and that was a message that we tried to make today. And I'm confident that when we do talk about the issues, when we do talk about our records, and we do talk about what we're going to do for the state moving forward, that we're going to win this race.
I have a question. Next, you react to the poll. You react to the recent Rasmussen poll that shows that I believe you're down 5, perhaps.
Look, back when I announced last year, I never had any illusions that this would be an easy race. It's going to be a close race in November. You're going to see polls that have me up 3 or 4. You're going to see polls that have the congressman up 3 or 4. It's going to continue like this. Because we have 6.5 months is a very long time. What's of greater concern to me is making sure that voters know that there's a stark choice between a failed past. Congressman Kirk has been a part of a failed past in this country's history, which has put this economy on the precipice of disaster, or a promising future where we talk about creating jobs, where we talk about helping small business owners, where we talk about issues that are really important to Illinois voters, and that's something we're going to continue to do.
If the bank fails, if the bank fails and the pressure mounts, will you step down off the
Let's
ticket?
let me take this.
Take that one.
Will you step down if the pressure mounts and the bank fails?
That will never happen. Now, we're going to win this race, and we're going to win this race because of the issues that I just mentioned. We're out there talking about creating jobs. We're out there talking about rescuing a planet in peril. We're out there talking about helping small businesses and helping families that are dealing with challenges. We're out there talking about ending pre-existing conditions when the congressman is against almost all these issues. And not only that, he doesn't even talk about it. That's why we're going to win in November.
So last week, Congressman Kirk had a news conference where he talked about stem cell research, and I don't think he mentioned Broadway Bank once. Do you accept him as a moderate and a champion of that cause, and would you be as strong?
This image out there that Congressman Kirk is a moderate is an absolute farce, and it's just not true. He tries to find issues that are very easy to talk about, but yet behind closed doors, he says Barack Obama's a one-termer, and this guy, and he wants to repeal. As your next United States Senator, he would repeal health insurance reform, health care reform. And then when you ask him about it, he backs off and he says he's not sure where he stands. He says that Sarah Palin wouldn't be a vice presidential choice that he would choose, and yet behind closed doors he begs for her support. He says that he's pro-choice, and he votes for the Stupak Amendment, which is a dangerous infringement on what is a legal medical procedure. He's against the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He's against the repeal of DOMA. He votes against one of the largest middle-class tax cuts in this country's history, yet he votes for tax cuts for the wealthiest 1%. Again, if those are his views, let's have that conversation. Let's have that debate. But to say one thing and change based on the political winds, when you have a guy who stands up and says, I'm voting for cap and trade because of the national interest of the United States, and it's a national security issue, and then says in front of a Republican crowd when he's running for the U.S. Senate that the only reason he voted that way was for the narrow interests of my district and he would never do it again. At some point we want principle, at some point we want leadership, and so far he hasn't evidenced that. And again, let's talk about those issues going forward.
Alexi, maybe the basic Broadway Bank question is this. Why should the voters trust you to be their senator after you were senior loan officer at a bank which did give a couple of outfit characters $20 million of loans?
Look, and I've been answering these questions and I'll continue to do so. The truth of the matter is, when you have a bank with thousands of customers, it's easy to cherry pick a few and go back in time and say, I wish we wouldn't have done business with these individuals. If you go to banks that are even larger, that have even more customers, you're going to find even more individuals that they wish they hadn't done business with. That's not how the real world business model works, unfortunately. As I've said before, if I knew then what I know now, these are the kind of people that we want to do business with, and it's an unfair and it's an offensive characterization of Broadway Bank's customers when we have hundreds, when we have thousands of customers that are hardworking men and women that have started their first store, bought their first home, hired individuals, have been a fabric of the economy here in Chicago, that are great people that wouldn't have gotten their start if it weren't for that bank. Again, I haven't been there for 4 years, and I'm trying to answer all these questions, but I think it's also important to put things in the proper context. Okay?
Thanks,
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.